The Cannabis Heals Me podcast, episode 99.
You're listening to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast, where we explore the real stories of real people who have discovered the profound healing properties of the cannabis plant in their own lives. Find more at cannabishealsme.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. This is your host, Rachel Kennerly, and we are recording once again at the Storybook Inn Studios. So glad you guys are joining me today. Man, we are one episode away from episode 100 of the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. I don't know if you've been listening to us from the very beginning or if you are new to finding our podcast, but I'm stoked. I'm absolutely stoked that we're at 100, and I am so thankful for everyone who continues to come back here week after week, sometimes 2 times a week, and listen to the podcast. The folks who have been sharing the podcast with their friends and family, we very much appreciate it. And we wouldn't be doing this show if it weren't for you, because it'd be a total waste of my time if nobody listened to me. I've got better things to do with my time than talk to nobody. But you are not a nobody, so here I am broadcasting out into the WWW for anyone and everyone who wants to listen to this show. And speaking of anyone and everyone listening to this show, our show has officially been downloaded in 48 of the 50 states in the U.S. If you know anyone who lives in Wyoming or South Dakota, you need to call those people right now and say, you've got to download this podcast. You don't even have to listen to it, just download it so we can complete the 50 perfecta, however you would say that, so that we can get it downloaded in all 50 states of the United States. And it's also been listened to in countries like Poland, Switzerland, the Philippines, Honduras, Jamaica, Indonesia, Hong Kong, and St. Kitts and Nevis, Liechtenstein. I would have never thought somebody would listen to my podcast in Liechtenstein. That's crazy. Liechtenstein, of all places. And some other off-the-wall places are, let me scroll down through this list. That's not too off the wall. Bulgaria's not. Oh, the Faroe Islands. I've never even heard of those before. So that's pretty cool that somebody is listening in a country I've never even heard of before. So please continue to share the show like you have been doing. We very much appreciate it. For those of you who have already participated in our Tell 3 People Challenge, thank you very much. If you haven't done so, what's the problem? What's the holdup? Are you embarrassed? You don't know anybody that doesn't already know about cannabis as medicine? Surely there's one person in your life who is still a prohibitionist. And if they are, share this podcast with them. I think it's a great podcast for sharing with people who have never considered cannabis as medicine. Because if the story of a parent treating a sick child with cannabis medicine can't win that person over, then they have a heart of stone or possibly don't even have a heart at all. So please tell 3 people about the podcast this week. Let's get more people to join the cannabis as medicine revolution. Now, speaking of parents with sick children, our guest today is Karen Gray. Her son Murray started having seizures at the age of 2, and he didn't have them all that often. But then when he was 5, they started becoming a lot more frequent and a lot more varied, like drop seizure, tonic, clonic. He had the spectrum of seizures. And unfortunately, none of the prescription medications that were available to Karen were helping Murray get his seizures under control. So Karen Gray, all the way from, at the time I spoke to her, Windy, Scotland, is going to come on and share the story of her son, Murray. Hey, Karen.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. About yourself?
Yeah, not bad.
Cool. Well, I'm glad we could connect with the time difference and all that stuff.
Yeah, what time is it where you are?
It is 7:30 in the morning.
Oh, that's early.
It is early. I'm kind of a night owl, so this is kind of early for me, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, brilliant.
I have a pretty conversational style as far as the interviews go, so I don't have a list of questions. I was just going to open the floor up to you and let you tell your son's story.
Right, okay, right. So, Murray was born naturally and everything, no problems. And he had a seizure when he was about 2. which obviously resulted in going up to hospital. And over the next 3 years, they just increased and increased and increased. So by 2017, between January and November, he had 12 tonic-clonic seizures. And then in the December, he had 12 in that month.
Wow.
Then we put him on anti-epileptic drugs, sodium valproate, and then we added in clobazam. And by the January, he was having 12 a day. We were seeing, he ended up being in hospital. He was in non-convulsive status, he got taken to HDU, like high dependency, got given a drug called phenobarbital. So he slept for 3 days, and then when he woke up, he was out of status. He started having myclonic jerks, absconces, drop seizures. And obviously they said he had Doose syndrome, and that they knew he had Doose syndrome from that. So over that course of that year, 2018, they tried him on various things. We tried the ketogenic diet twice, but he wouldn't eat it. And he's always been a really good eater, will eat anything you give him, but he just would not touch it. And I spent hours making stuff, which he just wouldn't. And I mean, so the first time he wouldn't eat it. The second time I wanted to really give it a go. He basically starved for 3 days because I was so determined that he was going to eat this stuff, and he was going to do it. But I gave in after 3 days of him not eating, because I thought this isn't good either, not eating, especially when he's got a good appetite. We tried Keppra, just all the usual things. We tried steroids. He gained 2 stone in weight when he was 5.
Hey guys, wanted to tell you real quick about our podcast host and sponsor, Anchor.fm. If you're thinking about starting your own podcast, I highly recommend Anchor. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They'll distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go out to Anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor.fm. Now back to the show. Now, for reference for the folks in America, I think it's like 14 pounds per stone, so it's like 28 pounds, which is a lot of weight for a little bitty kid to gain.
It was. His best friend at school didn't even recognise him. He was scared of him, when he came up to see him. And it was just awful. He was put on ketamine, which is, the horse tranquilizer drug that people associate with recreational use and stuff. They did have some, they used it in Belgium, I think, and they had some success. So they decided to try it. But he was absolutely like a zombie for a week, so that didn't work. Nothing helped the seizures. Then they put him on zonisamide. That didn't help either. I ended up going over to Holland in May 2018 to basically go and get the medical cannabis over there, because I'd started campaigning over here in the March 2017, because I knew that it was made in this country, in the UK, and it was sent abroad and sold abroad, but we couldn't access it.
Are you kidding me? So they made it there and sent it everywhere else, but you guys didn't have access to it?
Yep, exactly, because there wasn't any. I think there was actually trials. Yeah, I don't know if it was a cost thing, but the NHS just wouldn't use it.
Now the NHS, what is that for?
Yeah, the National Health Service. So in America, I think you guys pay insurance for your health. We don't have that over here. We have the National Health Service, so like if we get ill, we go to hospital and we don't have to pay. That comes out I think it's our national insurance that we pay, things like that. So we are really lucky here having the NHS. I went to Holland. Whenever I was there, I got a phone call from Murray's neurologist to say that they'd managed to get him the Epidiolex, which is the CBD isolate that they make over here. So then I brought Murray back home, and they checked. He just did a routine blood test on him before they put him on the Epidiolex, and he wasn't producing red blood cells at all. So they sort of held off starting him on the CBD. He had to have blood transfusions. Then he had a drop seizure in hospital and cracked his head open. Had to get it glued together. So they decided that they were just going to go ahead and put him on the Epidiolex. So this was in August 2018. He ended up having 5 blood transfusions.
Wow.
That year as well, because of this some unknown reason he wasn't producing red blood cells. Anyway, the Epidiolex, it stopped the myclonics, the drops and the absconces, but he was still having tonic-clonic seizures at night. and he had absolute chronic diarrhea. I mean, it was just awful. The diarrhea he was having, it was terrible. But he was managing to go back to school for an hour a day, so it was worth it. But then in the December, it just stopped working. He just got really, really, really ill again. Obviously, in November is whenever they changed the law over here to allow clinicians to start prescribing cannabis-based products. He was lucky to get Epidiolex. They gave him it on compassionate grounds, which was good, but it stopped working.
Yeah.
So in the January 2019, he ended up in hospital, back in status, really, really ill. He was lying in a bed in a vegetative state, basically. He couldn't talk, couldn't move. He was getting tube fed. He was just getting iller and iller. His muscle tone went. Then his breathing started going, and they thought they were going to have to take him up to high dependency and intensive care and stuff because he just wasn't doing too well. So that's when I decided to go over to Holland. I found a doctor. I got a prescription for the cannabis with the THC, and I brought it back and I started giving it to him. He wasn't getting any better at that point. I think obviously, I know in other countries they use THC to bring them out of status, but the THC it was just a small amount in the CBD and it wasn't enough. So they ended up giving him phenobarbital again. He slept for 3 days and woke up and he was out of status. So then I just continued to giving him the medical cannabis, the CBD with the THC. And he started getting better and better. Then we ended up getting discharged from hospital. This is after them having to learn to walk again and eat again and stuff.
Wow.
But he was doing so well. And so this was in March that I started giving him it. By the May, he was doing so well. He had another EEG in hospital and it was just shown that he was in status again, even though he was walking about. So the cannabis was definitely helping in that respect because he was just lying in a hospital bed 2 months before with the same EEG. So that's when we decided to add THC, more THC, which is a product called Bedica from Holland. So we mixed the two together, which basically made it about a 20-to-1 ratio that he was getting.
20 THC to 1 CBD or
No, 20 CBD to 1 THC.
Okay, so still pretty low dose for THC.
Very, very low, yeah, exactly. So on the 7th of June, that was the last time he had a seizure, and he's not had a seizure since.
Wow.
So June 2019 was the last time he had a seizure, and he's still on the cannabis oils. He's back at school full time. He's learning now. He's very behind because he obviously missed about a couple of years of school.
Yes.
But he's learning. You can see he's learning. His speech is coming on. He's just doing absolutely brilliant. Really, really brilliant.
Is he behind physically as well, or is he caught back up?
No, he's absolutely physically. He's brilliant. He's really, really good. He's really, really good. Yeah. It's all good considering he was in a wheelchair as well a couple of years ago when I went to Holland the first time. He was actually in a wheelchair. So he just couldn't walk very well and stuff. But yeah, he's not had his wheelchair in months. He's not worn a protective helmet in months. I mean, it's incredible, the difference.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. What is the legal status of cannabis in the UK?
Well, obviously the law was changed to allow clinicians to prescribe it. However, I think the government got a wee bit confused with it all because the product that's available now is a CBD isolate and there's no THC in it. But we all campaigned for the law to change to allow clinicians to prescribe THC. And in the guidelines of the law, the clinicians can prescribe THC. However, none of the clinicians will do it because there have been no tests. Well, they say there's been no tests with THC in the country, but there has been with one company that make Epidiolex, what Murray tried, and they also make Sativex, which is a 50-50 THC to CBD product, and it's for the symptoms of MS and stuff. And they have trialed that, but they seem to think that that's different compared to the rest of the cannabis in the world with the THC. It's just not good at all. So nobody in the NHS will prescribe it at all just now. There's talks of them doing trials and stuff, but we don't know how far away that'll be. So there's myself and a lot of others are actually paying for the cannabis oils ourselves. I mean, I'm paying nearly £1,400 a month.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money. each month on this. So I'm still, campaigning, and I've got the Scottish government are looking into it at the moment to see, because there's actually 2 children in the UK that get NHS prescriptions of the very same oil.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how can they get it? And, my child and the rest of the children can't access it through the NHS if they're already prescribing it to 2 children.
Yeah, it seems like it would be more cost effective for them to pay for your cannabis oils than to pay for these prescription drugs. It seems, at least that's the way it is in the US, is that the cannabis medicine is usually less expensive than the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, well, the cannabis medicine is very, very expensive, but I think, if more people were getting prescribed it, they'd obviously get it cheaper and it would bring all the costs down.
The medicine that you're getting, is it like how do you get it? I mean, I know you said you've gone to Holland. Is there like a pharmacy there that you go to, or how does that work?
Yeah, basically they grow it in Holland and the pharmacy buy the flower and they make it into the oil. So at the start, I was going over to Holland. I was bringing it over on a Dutch prescription. I was illegally bringing it in to the UK, and I was illegally giving it to Murray. I mean, I could have, I could have faced jail for doing what I was doing, but I knew I had to try it. It was the only thing left to try. Whenever I ended up doing a documentary with another lady with a son, that me and her actually went together to Holland to get the oil, and it was a BBC documentary that came out, and an importer watched it and contacted us and decided that he was going to start bringing in the oil legally. And then we got a private prescription from the only one paediatric neurologist in the UK that's writing prescriptions. It's a private neurologist. So now everything's above board and legal. I've got a private prescription and an importer bringing it in legally. So,
but you're still having to pay for it out of pocket as opposed to the government covering it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's only one neurologist in the country or in the UK that will actually give you a prescription for medical cannabis products with THC in it.
Yeah, it's for the pediatrics, for the children. There's other private doctors that will prescribe it for adults, but at the moment there's just one doctor who's stepped above the line and is doing fantastic, because I don't know where Murray would be without her, writing that prescription. So, yeah.
Yeah, what now in America, what parents have to worry about, and I don't know if they have anything similar to that in the UK, is Child Protective Services coming and taking the kids away if they think you're giving your kids some sort of illegal substance. Was that ever a concern for you, or were you more worried about going to jail?
Well, to be honest, it is a concern for a lot of people here, but the way in my head, it was, this is the last thing to try. This is helping other kids in other countries and kids in this country as well. Do you know what I mean? That are making their own oils. Mm-hmm. The oil I chose is a GMP approved oil, right? So it's a pharmaceutical grade oil that I choose because I thought, well, if I get taken to court, I can fight my case here. Mm-hmm. And social services were child protection. That's what it is. Social services. It was a big issue. I mean, I got them involved and I told them what I was doing. I told them exactly what I was doing, and whenever I gave Murray the oils, I told them I was doing that as well. And to be fair to them, they've actually been really supportive, because they saw how ill Murray was, how good he is now, and they're actually fully supportive, and they think he should have a prescription as well. So I've been very, very lucky that I've got an understanding social work team in Edinburgh.
That's great. Now, what was the doctor's response when you brought in the cannabis oil when Murray was in the hospital? Were they poo-pooing you, or were they kind of the same point that you were, like desperation, let's try anything?
No, no. Basically, they didn't know that I had it. They couldn't know, because if they knew that I was giving it to them, they could get into trouble, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
I had to just close the curtains and do it and not involve them at all, because I didn't want, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But they know now. They obviously know now. Obviously I'm quite open and honest about it. And they're just very apologetic that they can't prescribe it. And I think it's because none of them want to step out the line and get, just get into trouble or whatever. I don't know what would happen. But it's a case of they know I'm doing it, and they can clearly see it helps because he's had a couple of EEGs and they look normal.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Compared to the last ones he had where they were just all over the place, it was incredible. There was no sign of seizure activity. The neurologist could see that the Doose syndrome was underlying, but there was no signs of seizure activity on the last EEG that he had.
Wow. And this is a kid that was wheelchair bound and having seizures pretty much nonstop, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it was awful. It had the tonic clonics. He had 25 of them in a 10-hour period. The myclonics and absconces. I sat and did tally marks in hospital, and I counted 600 over a 24-hour period. I mean, they were absolutely awful.
Now, for those who are not familiar with the different types of seizures, can you explain what the difference is in the types of seizures?
Yeah. So the tonic-clonic ones, they're the big ones. They're the ones where you fall to the ground and you shake and lose consciousness. They're awful. Then the myclonic jerks, it's almost like somebody getting an electric shock. That's the best way to describe it. It's like like an electric shock. The absences were just where he would just sit and stare into space, and you could tap his nose and put your hand in front of his face, and he just would sit and stare into space. He was just not there at all. And the drop seizures, oh, they're awful. He would just be walking or whatever, and then he'd just fall to the ground. Just like you couldn't catch him even if you were next to him. He would just fall straight to the ground.
Mm. And it was what were the seizures that he was having when he had 600? You counted that he had 600 in a 24-hour period?
Yeah, they were myclonic jerks and absences.
Wow.
They're the ones. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Goodness gracious. Now, what about, you mentioned that he was having trouble with low red blood cell count. Is that still a problem that he's having, or is that cleared up?
Interestingly, the more after about 4 blood transfusions, I was certain that it was one of the medications he was on.
Mm-hmm.
So they took him off sodium valproate. That was the very first AED he was put on. They took him off it, they weaned him off it, and the red blood cells went back to normal. So They knew then it was the sodium valproate doing that to him, yeah.
Well, that's good. But yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is just all the terrible side effects of a lot of these anti-seizure medications. And it sounds like Murray was certainly suffering from some of those.
Oh, absolutely. They're just, I mean, he was like a zombie. It was just horrible. Just, horrible.
Yeah. Did he ever have any trouble with like liver function or anything like that with being on all the pharmaceutical meds?
No, that's one thing. The only problem that he had was the red blood cell problem. And when they came off that medication, he was fine. He's all the other, because he's had MRIs and lumbar punctures and things like that, and everything's came back clear. So he's lucky that they didn't, he was like a zombie, but he hasn't done any permanent damage.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what pharmaceutical medications is he on now?
He is on, he obviously takes the Bedulite, which is the CBD and THC, and he takes the Bedica, which is the THC. He takes a drug called zonisamide, which he's been on since May 2017, is that right? No, May 2018. And we know it doesn't help. He's on about 75 milligrams twice a day. We know we don't think it does anything, but because he's seizure free, we're just too scared to take him off anything just now. Yeah, and he's on.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, he's on another one called lamptrogene, but he's only on 5 milligrams twice a day. And even the doctors say that that's probably doing absolutely nothing at all. But I'm too scared to adjust, to fiddle about with anything. I just want to leave it as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. That's my motto as well.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. So I've seen some other posts from folks in the UK where they'll go and get medicinal cannabis and bring it back to the UK, and it'll be confiscated when they come into the country. Did you ever have trouble with that?
I never had trouble with that, but I've got friends that it happened to. And what would happen is there's a campaign group called End Our Pain here, and between them and their MPs, they were contacting the Home Office and they were getting it back.
Well, that's good.
But lately, nobody's had it taken off them lately. So we think they've been told to let people through with it.
Yeah. Now, is that something when you fly in, or I'm assuming you fly in, you may drive in, is that something that you have to declare when you come back to the country? Or is that something you're supposed to?
Yeah, legally you should declare anything you bring back if it's but nobody does. Nobody declares it because they would get it taken off them. So you just no point declaring it. Just come back in with it.
So the ones that have had it confiscated have like drug dogs sniffed it out, or were they kind of targeting them?
I think they were definitely targeting them. They stopped them and asked to search their bag, and they take the oil away, they test it, and if it's got over the legal amount of THC, then they confiscate it.
What is the legal amount of THC there?
I think it's something like 0.6% or 0.4%. Or it might even be 0.2%. I can't remember. It's very, very, very low. Very, very, very low.
Yeah, I think our legal percentage here, where they consider it hemp, is 0.3% THC.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same then. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be like international treaties or something.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it sounds like Murray is doing amazing from where he was just a couple years ago.
Oh, absolutely. It's like night and day. It's incredible.
Mm. And how old is he now?
He's 7 now. He'll be 8 in June. 8 in August, sorry.
Okay. So you guys had basically 5 years of having to fight all these seizures.
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 years, it wasn't too bad because they were very, it was maybe like one every couple of months. It's whenever they started getting more frequent, one a month, and then he started having loads daily. That's when it got pretty horrendous.
Yeah, and then they put him on all the steroids and everything they could throw in him, it sounds like.
Yeah, all the drugs, yup. And I mean, it would have been good if the drugs had actually helped, but they just didn't. They just made him worse, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty amazing transformation. How close are you guys, do you think? I know it's hard to tell when you got politicians involved, but how close do you think you guys are to getting the government health insurance to cover the cost of the medical cannabis so you guys don't have to pay for this stuff out of pocket?
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell. I think we must be close because they already pay for 2 other children, and the routes that one of the children get it, that's the route that I'm certainly taking with Murray. So how can Murray be denied to get this through the NHS if there's another child getting it using the same pathways?
Mm-hmm.
So I just need to wait and see. I'm hoping I hear back in the next week or 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So do you have to go to Holland every time to get it, or can they send it to you? How does that work?
No,
now?
I've got an importer that brings it in. So the importer picks it up from the pharmacy in Holland and brings it back over here. So that saves me going over to get it.
Yeah, at least you don't have to pay to travel over there now.
Yeah,
but you're still having to pay through the nose to buy it. Wow.
Well, I know. I mean, a lot of people are up in arms over here because they grow it themselves and they make their own oil, which is obviously a considerable amount cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And people are getting like busted by the police and plants taken off them and taken to court and fined. And I think there's a lot of people over here that are just now pleading not guilty whenever they get taken to court because that they're using it for their like MS and chronic pain and stuff, and it's helping them. It's just crazy that especially whenever the government is decriminalised it for for medical use, basically. So that's them saying that they understand that it is medicinal. So why are they still arresting people?
Yeah, I saw something the other day that somebody had been arrested over it, but it sounds like the legal status is a little fuzzy over there. So maybe people don't even understand whether what they're doing is legal or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they say that medical cannabis is this Epidiolex, and it is cannabis based, but it's not got any THC in it at all. And that's not what everybody wants and everybody campaign for. It's the THC that everybody, actually everybody needs. And however dose, however much they need it, like if it's chronic pain, it would be higher THC than what Murray gets.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's just so scared of the THC, and it's like they don't understand there's a beneficial component to that THC. It's not just about getting high. It's something that the body needs sometimes.
Exactly, and Murray's never been high ever. I mean, the dose that he's getting, so small. It's so small, but it's so efficient, and it helps him so much. But he's never ever been high at all, ever.
Yeah, with that tiny bit. I mean, it's still a very small. If it's a 20-to-1, it's still a very small amount of THC.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So yeah. I guess home grow is still off the table in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously people are campaigning for it and really fighting for it because, a lot of people the majority of people actually can't afford to get a private prescription.
Yeah.
And they can't afford to pay the private prices that the clinics are charging. So, and if it helps them, then why shouldn't they be able to just grow it and make it themselves? They're not costing the NHS money.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like a win-win.
It is a win-win situation. It really is. It really is.
Yeah, it's not costing the country money, and the people know what is in the medicine that they're consuming.
Exactly. And I mean, you can get it tested and things, so it's just crazy. I don't see why people aren't allowed to do it.
Yeah. Is there any movement on that front as far as allowing people to grow their own medicine?
No, but there's a lot of people campaigning for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think obviously in the last couple of years, the more of the public have started to realise that cannabis isn't this recreational drug that hippies smoke or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's actually a medicine that helps people, and I think more and more people are turning to it now. But obviously they're turning to the black market because they can't afford private prescriptions. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was your attitude about cannabis before Murray got so sick?
I've got to be honest with you. Before I knew about it, basically, my husband had sent me an article, and it was one of the mums over here. Her child has an NHS prescription for it. I read an article that said that he went to Holland and got cannabis to treat his epilepsy. And so then I started researching it because I thought, oh, no way. Like, I was just, prohibition like everybody else. Cannabis is a drug. And I thought, no way, that can't be right. And the more and more I looked into it, I thought, oh my God, like, I can't believe this. And then I thought, I've got to try this. The more and more people, more and more children, parents I was speaking to that was helping, I thought I've absolutely got to try this and see if it helps.
Right. Well, I'm a child of the 80s, and so when I was growing up, it was in America. They had Nancy Reagan, who was the President Reagan's wife. Her big thing was just say no. So we grew up in school. We're just indoctrinated that you just say no, and that this marijuana is this terrible thing, and it makes you kill people and die and all this horrible stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was brought up, and it's actually really annoying because they linked cannabis in with heroin and cocaine and things like that. So basically, if you were to take cannabis, that's just as bad as taking heroin, and it's completely different. Do you know what I mean? Like heroin is a terrible drug. It's addictive. It's really a horrible drug. So to actually class, just say no and have them in the same sort of category is just crazy. Yep.
Yeah, and in America, they have a class system for the different types of drugs, and cannabis is on that higher level of drugs. Like, it's just as bad or worse than heroin or cocaine or anything like that.
That is it's insane, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
That's the thing. I mean, people have died for taking cocaine and ecstasy and heroin. Nobody's ever died from smoking a joint,
Right,
so
right.
How on earth can they say that that's the same,
Yeah. And then we're rediscovering all these beneficial uses. Like in the United States, for over 100 years, cannabis was on the U.S. pharmacopoeia. And so, and had all these crazy uses, like for epilepsy and stuff. And for, 80 years, our governments have obfuscated that and lied to us about a stinking plant.
I know. It makes you angry, doesn't it?
Right.
It really makes you angry. And I think it's because, I think it's the pharmaceutical companies. It all sort of goes back to them, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
they can't make money off it. So
right. Yeah, and then I think a lot of it just goes back to the government wanting to control every facet of our lives too.
yeah, exactly. But they can't. They're losing. They
are.
You know,
they are.
They're never going to be able to control it ever.
Right. And I think it's going to blow back on them because, now I'm thinking, you know what, if they've lied to us about a plant for 80 years, what else are those dudes lying about?
Exactly.
It makes me start to question. I'm not, I don't necessarily consider myself, or I didn't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but I'm certainly more of one now than I used to be.
Exactly. Same with me. I mean, even vaccines. Now you used to automatically take the vaccines because you have to get them to protect you for things, and you do it. I mean, I think I got the flu vaccination, particularly this year. I didn't get it. And I've been for the past 7 years, I always had the flu vaccination. And this year I decided not to get it. And I think it's simply because, as you say, you don't want to be a conspiracist, you know what? But it just does make you wonder. It does make you wonder.
Yeah, and I'll be real honest with you. I've started to wonder about vaccines as well myself. I mean, I've always been. I never took the flu vaccine because I knew too many people that would get the flu vaccine and still get the flu, and I don't like needles, so I'm like, I'll take my chances with the flu. But and my son has been fully vaccinated, but now I'm kind of like, all right, maybe I want to do a little more research into this before I just automatically accept what the government tells me I should or shouldn't do with my kid. And the scary thing now is that they're making those things mandatory where you don't have a choice what is injected into your body or into your child's body, which is quite terrifying.
I know. I mean, all my kids are vaccinated, and any time I've asked, do you really think they'd spend money making something like this if it wasn't going to help? That's the sort of response that you get from doctors.
Yeah, but look at all the money they spend on telling us how terrible cannabis is for us.
Exactly.
So we won't go down that rabbit hole today.
Yeah, I know.
But it does. It makes you question a lot. I at least me it does, and it sounds like you may be questioning some things too.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I'm so glad to hear that Murray's doing well, and it's nice to get a little perspective of what is happening with cannabis around the world, because I just don't know much about what happens outside the U.S. And it's different from state to state here. So to know what's happening in another country, it's even more difficult.
Yeah, I know, it's just crazy. What state are you in?
I live in Texas.
Oh, right. So do you have cannabis?
We do not. The only thing we have access to right now is now Epidiolex. We have access to that because that's gone through, that's jumped through all the FDA's hoops. So people that want to try Epidiolex for their kids or for themselves with seizures, they can do that. But as far as, cannabis oil with anything over 0.3%, well, let me take that back. In the state of Texas, just recently, they approved 0.5% THC basically it's CBD oil with 0.5% THC. But it's nothing to like what you're being able to access for Murray. So we've got people that they've moved out of the state so they can get access to this.
Yeah.
Or they, they have to break the law and face felony prison sentences over getting access to medicine. I mean, at least it's nice that we could actually move out of state if we have to. But I mean, can you imagine having to leave Scotland and go somewhere else to have access to medicine? I mean, just to leave your, because in Texas, roots run pretty deep, and I'm sure it's pretty similar around the world. People don't just want to pack up and move, but there are those people that have to.
It's shocking because we obviously considered it, but my daughter was sitting exams and my son was just about to go up to high school, and so we've got 2 dogs. I mean, my husband works, so it was just it wasn't really an option. We couldn't just up and go like that. I mean, one of the top pediatric neurologists actually in this country stated that a lot of parents in America were moving over to Colorado to access it, and the people that lived there weren't seeing as much benefit from using the cannabis as the people that moved to Colorado. So in her theory, it was placebo effect. And we all argue against this because a 5 or a 7-year-old child doesn't understand the placebo effect.
That's right.
They don't understand it. So that is just absolute nonsense.
I mean, that's what got me, because I was always drugs are bad, you don't do drugs, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. Until I knew somebody that's what she did. Her son was having drop seizures, and he would have like 100 drop seizures a day.
Oh.
And so he wore the little helmet, and he'd gotten to where he wouldn't even walk anymore. He just crawled everywhere because he was afraid he was going to fall down. Oh. And so that's what they did. They had talked about, even this has been several years ago, when CBD oil was still illegal here in Texas, and she talked to the doctors about putting him on CBD oil, and they told her, if you put him on CBD oil, we're going to call Child Protective Services, and they're going to come take your son from you.
So, that's awful.
I know. So she packed up and she moved to Colorado and started using Rick Simpson oil with her son. I mean, she started with low THC, and basically just moved up to where he's like on a high THC dose, because that's what he needs to control the seizures. And he's been seizure free for over 2 years. And you can't tell me that's a placebo effect with a 3-year-old kid.
No, it's not. It's definitely, I mean, it's the THC. We noticed ourselves, as soon as we added that little extra bit THC in, it made such a difference. And there's other kids as well that it's made such a difference to as well. So it's definitely the cannabis, definitely.
Yeah. Have you seen your doctors kind of come around to seeing cannabis as medicine? I mean, like in the United States, most doctors have no knowledge whatsoever of the endocannabinoid system, so they don't have a clue. I didn't know if it was the same in the UK or no.
It's exactly the same. I don't know why they don't get taught about it. I'm hoping that they are going to start getting taught about that. I mean, our Murray's neurologist was very against even CBD. You're very against it all, but he's actually said, for seeing Murray, he now wants to do trials with THC. He actually wants to do these trials now because he can see that it's helped him. So
that's awesome.
I think they are coming round. Yeah, they are coming round to it. So that's good.
Yeah, to go from not even wanting to use CBD.
I know, exactly. I think it's what they all get told they can use. They've got a strict sort of cabinet of medicines they can use, and they won't go outside of that cabinet. They're all too scared. Which is no wonder if they think they can lose their job or get into trouble for doing it. So you can't blame them at all.
And that's the way it is here too. I mean, different states have written the law. If they say prescribe, doctors won't prescribe it here because it's still federally illegal. But if they say recommend it, then doctors can make a recommendation without having to worry about losing their licensure. So, So yeah, I guess it's a lot of it's just a CYA. So I can understand they go to school for a decade, and it's like, I'm still paying student loans. I don't want to lose my job yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they've been told what we have as well, that cannabis is bad. Cannabis is bad. You'll get psychosis if you take that. So yeah,
you'll turn into a serial killer and kill your mother with an axe or something.
Exactly. I mean, it's insane, isn't it?
It is. It's crazy. All the lies we've been told about it. Yeah. Well, that's it's promising. It looks like something may break loose here pretty soon. And at least you can get access to the medicine without having to be worried about being thrown in a cage.
Exactly.
But that's a huge expense. I mean, I can't even imagine spending that, because I think a pound is like translates to like $2 here, so I can't even imagine spending that much money per month on medicine.
I know it's more than a mortgage, it's more than what you pay for your house. So
yeah. So I mean, I guess you could probably find it less expensive on the black market, but then you've got to worry about, well, am I giving my son what he's really supposed to get?
Well, exactly. I mean, there's people over here that give it to you free. There's children that are getting it for free and it's helping them, but obviously they can't speak about it. They've got to be really careful because the social services getting involved in things. It's a nightmare. And
so it's like, okay, I pay $1,400 for this, or £1,400 for this, or I have to worry about being thrown in jail.
Exactly. And exactly. Yeah, you just don't. It's scary going down that route. And I think in order to change things, you can't just sit and be quiet because nothing will change.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. So if you're going to be vocal and outspoken like you've been, you certainly have to do everything on the up and up.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't take the risk because I know that they would definitely, they would definitely do something if I wasn't. So yeah, it's difficult. Yeah.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. I don't want to keep you too long, so I know you got to go pick up kiddos from school.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you coming on and sharing Murray's story with us. And man, I'm so glad to hear that he's doing just amazingly better. It's crazy to think of where he was
I know,
before
it really
cannabis
is.
And where he's at now.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It really is. Mm-hmm. It should be available a lot cheaper and a lot easier.
Well, hopefully, if they've already got 2 people that are able to get it paid for by NHS, it seems like, well, how can you justify paying for it for those 2 and not everybody else?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe something will shake loose.
Hopefully, yeah.
Maybe the politicians will catch up to what the rest of us already know, that cannabis is medicine and it's not something to be afraid of.
Yeah, I think if it was one of their family or children that needed it, I think they'd soon realise, although I have to say most of the politicians are all for it over here. They do all want change. So, yeah.
Yeah, they want change, but then when it comes down to actually doing something about it, they want to blame everybody. At least that's what they do here in America. They blame the other politicians for standing in the way.
Yeah.
So, and I think politicians are probably the same across the world.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a bunch, Karen, and
thank you.
And so glad Murray's doing so much better. And I'll stay in touch and keep an eye on you. I'm glad to see he's doing so well.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, nice talking to you.
All right, bye-bye. As usual, show notes for today's episode can be found out at cannabishealsme.com/99. I have a confession to make. I'm a little embarrassed to make this confession, but you've probably figured it out if you listen to the whole episode. I neglected to ask my guest to tell us her Twitter handle or wherever else you guys can follow her. And I'm going to blame the fact that I was up earlier than usual and not my middle-aged lady brain as to why I forgot to ask this. So make sure you go out to the show notes page because I'm going to put a link to her social media handles. I know she's out on Twitter. She's on Facebook, but I know she's really active on Twitter. So I'll be sure and put that. And then I also want you to go out if you're interested in helping contribute to offset the cost of Murray's money. There's also a GoFundMe page that's been set up for that. So I'll include a link to the GoFundMe page as well. So go check out the show notes on cannabishealsme.com/99. We will be back here on Thursday with our epic, and I know I said that before, but it's rubbing off because my 10-year-old says it all the time. And as much as it annoys me that he says it all the time, I still say it too. So we will be back here on Thursday with episode number 100. So I hope you're going to be here with bells on for episode number 100. I think you're going to enjoy it. If not, I enjoyed recording it, and, really, I'm the only one that matters because, it's my podcast. No, not really. I really appreciate everyone who has come back time and time again to listen to the podcast and who has thought highly enough about the podcast that they actually shared it with other people that they know and love. So we'll be back here Thursday. You guys have a great week. Thank you so much for listening. Hit the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode of the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or whatever podcast app you're using. Do you have a suggestion for a guest on Cannabis Heals Me? Send an email to podcast@cannabishealsme.com. We'd love to hear from you. Please do not take any information from Cannabis Heals Me or its guests as medical advice. Contact your licensed physician before taking cannabis or using it for medical treatments.